up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of The Pro and the Potato. In this episode, I am joined by a repeat guest, but it is actually the two-time world champion this time. He's the player and in-game leader for Spacestation Gaming, Canadian. What is up, Canadian? How you doing, man?
What's up, man? Doing good. How about you?
I'm doing good. I'm really happy to have you on, especially under these circumstances. You've been on the Pro and Potato 2 or 3 times before, I believe. And this time you're on coming off of a championship instead of a runner-up. So how does that feel?
Feels pretty damn good. Feels good. That's all there is to it, I guess.
You know, as I was at the Invitational, as I was watching you guys lift up the hammer, you know, you're there with your team, and I was kind of picturing this moment in my head, like, hey, I really hope I can get Canadian on and talk about, you know, how this feels to him. So can you describe, I mean, maybe one word, you know, what was the one word you think of when you describe how you're feeling when you're lifting up that hammer for the second time with all of your teammates up there?
Just rewarding, I guess. Rewarding would be like the one word for it, I'd say.
Rewarding. I think that's interesting that you choose that word. One word, obviously, you know, one word that I could have predicted you saying would be relief. Was there any sense of relief, or was it mostly just happiness?
It was mostly happiness. I mean, there was like some relief, but like the reason I say rewarding is it felt like I didn't feel like a lot of people perceived like all the other losses as like a curse. Like I just wasn't meant to win all these things, but I mean, I just took them as like kind of lessons, and I've said it before, like we deserve to lose all those times we lost. Like we made mistakes where there was like something inherently wrong with how we were playing the game, and we lost because of it, and the other team was better. Sure, they were in unfortunate and devastating ways, but like we did deserve to lose. It wasn't just unlucky. Like I never lost and thought it was unlucky. So it feels rewarding just because like to go through all that and just to show that I've learned from it. And like just to make it all worthwhile, basically.
Well, you mentioned, you know, some of those previous losses, and you know, I want to talk about that a little bit because I mentioned, you know, this is the second time that you've won the Invitational, and you know, in between the first time you won the Invitational, which was 2017, the first Invitational, correct? And then this one, which was in 2020, it was a bumpy road. I mean, I think that's fair to say. You alluded to it a little bit there, but I think it's fair to say it was a bumpy road from that first championship to the second. So I kind of want to rewind back to the 2018 Invitational. At that time, you're playing for EG. You guys are in the championship against Penta, that is now the core of the G2 roster, and you go up 2-0 to them in a best of 5. So if you win one more map, you win the Invitational. You would have been at that time the back-to-back, you know, Invitational championship, and we all know how that ended up losing. Penta comes back, wins the next 3 maps, wins the championship. Have your feeling on that loss changed over time?
I mean, I guess so, like in terms of like how sad I was, like obviously like over time I'm not as sad about it anymore, but like it was still a devastating loss. But like I said, like after we lost, we didn't lose and just feel like it was unlucky. They literally outplayed us on the 3 maps that we played, and it was as simple as that. It wasn't like a couple unlucky rounds or something like that. Like maybe Coastline, there was like a couple clutches, but we misplayed them. So I feel like my feelings on that loss haven't changed too much. I mean, I guess like immediately after I was like, ooh, I'm gonna like, it's gonna hurt for like for a while, and I'm gonna regret losing that. But like in hindsight, like, I mean, it was for the best, I think.
You know, you hear a lot of like professional football players talk about like when they go to the Super Bowl, like this might be the only chance that they get to play in this game. So make the best of it. And, you know, you never know if you'll actually make it back. Was there ever a part of you after that was saying, you know, I don't know that I'll ever have that good of a chance to win the Invitational again? Was there ever any part of your mind that went there?
Briefly after, yeah. And then I think it only strikes like right around the invitational. Like so right after we lost in that finals, and it was like, well shit, like we got a whole year now to wait to like try to make up for this again. And then like obviously if you miss it the next time, then it hurts even more. And the next time we missed out, we lost in quarterfinals. And then it was like, well, there goes that whole year. Um it's just it hits you like that, I'd say only right then. I don't think I've ever like played an invitational and then not thought that I could possibly make it back to finals again. Like every time I've played in the invitational, right after I'm like, all right, well, next year it is. Like I've never been like, well, that was my only shot or anything like that. I've never felt like that.
The next bump that I want to mention in the road between championships is Milan. There was the Pro League finals in Milan. You guys are, on match point after winning the first map. You're on the second map on match point. You're in a 3v2. As we all know how that goes, it's against Empire. They end up winning that round and then winning that map and the following map, and they end up winning the finals. You have shouldered a lot of the blame for that round, particularly, as well as, that match. Is it fair? The amount of criticism you've received for that particular situation, is that criticism on you fair?
I mean, I don't really think you can like expect criticism to ever be fair in in this world, I guess. Like on the internet, like playing esports, it's just criticism will never be fair. I feel like I don't think it was fair. I think there's a lot of things people blame that like don't aren't even necessarily to blame. Like a lot of people blame the CZ75, but like that was not the mistake. Like obviously, I made a big mistake that round, one by even going to the white stairs, and two by standing up. But the CZ75, I don't think had anything to do with it. But yeah, I think some of it's unfair. But like at the end of the day, yeah, we did make like I made a mistake. Mine was the most glaring mistake, I'd say. So I got most of the flack. And I mean, I was the face of the team. Like I'm like the easiest to love, easiest to hate. So it's just the way the cookie crumbles.
That's really interesting that you talk about it like that. And, I've thought about that a good bit. And I think you worded it perfectly there, that you're the easiest to love, easiest to hate. Everybody loves your emotion when you play. I think it's really captivating, but it also kind of puts a bullseye on you when things are great. It's awesome to see that, but when things aren't, everybody kind of comes back to you in that. And has that ever affected you in a way where you're like, man, maybe I just need to go like low profile and just not, because I know that when you have those, when you are emotional, that's you. Have you ever tried to tone it down just to eliminate that bullseye from being on you?
Milan was one of those events where I was more calm. I think a lot of the people that were like there, like I know Matt Andrews, he was talking to me about it a lot, and he like realized that I had seemed different. Like, and I had been trying to like basically change that approach to the game, because like I had noticed that it affected us in the past where if my emotion was down, but I also do think that that's just like a natural part of the game. Like if you're losing rounds, like at the end of the day, the emotion of the team is going to be more neutral. And yes, it's easier to notice that if you go from like extreme highs to a neutral state. But on SSG, like I've been back to like that high emotional kind of character, and like it hasn't affected us when we're down. Like we just remain neutral, like all right, next round. And then obviously if we have a good round, or if something positive is coming from it, then yeah, the energy builds up. But I think it's just a matter of how it's perceived. I think it's for the best that I just kind of remain myself. I don't try to filter it or anything.
Sure. That makes total sense. The next bump in the road was a Raleigh Major, where you're still with EG at that point, and you don't make it actually out of the group stage. And I just want to kind of know, like, you're somebody who I think you've played in 4 of the 5 total major finals. So that's like the kind of what 3 of the 5, I guess it would be, or 4 of the 6. There's been 6 total majors, and
there's been 5. There's been 5, right? No, there's been 6. Sorry.
Yeah.
6.
So I think you've played in 4 of the 6 major finals. I think that's the
Yes, 3 invitationals in Paris. Yeah.
yes. And so you're used to going to these majors and performing at a very high level. You know what I mean? I don't think anybody can take anything away from you that you, as a player, consistently perform in the majors, whether it's on EG or Space Station, it doesn't matter. So to go to Raleigh and not make it out of groups, what was your mindset after that?
Um, I mean, that was like the kind of the breaking point. I'd say. I mean, right after I think that was the first time that I was like really mad after we lost. Um, like I've lost and I've been upset. But like that time I was genuinely angry. Um, and it was just because like it felt embarrassing to me. Like I've choked. That doesn't even feel as embarrassing to me. Like it is what it is. Like we know the mistakes we made. We can learn from. We can move on. But like at Rally, just we got destroyed. We weren't even close to being a good team, and that's where it really kind of upset me. And right away, we were basically discussing like changes needed to be made. The idea that I had was that like either multiple changes needed to happen on EG, and I don't even know which. Um, we knew that we wanted to change Geo, but we didn't, and we needed to change someone else as well, but we didn't know who. Um, and then because like we couldn't really come to a conclusion, I like also at the same time I was like, hey, I'm gonna keep my options open, and had the opportunity to go to SSG, and kind of the rest is history, I guess.
You were with that core group there on EG for a very long time. Was that really difficult for you to leave?
Yeah, it was a tough decision. I mean, uh, like I said, like we didn't even know. We knew that like a change needed to happen. Everyone on the team knew a change needed to happen, but it was to the point where like we were so close to each other too that we couldn't even like realize like who we would need to replace on the team or anything. Um, it was just we knew we weren't good enough, and that if we didn't change, that we wouldn't be good enough. So it was definitely tough. I mean, I'm really close with those guys. I'm still really close with those guys, thankfully. I'm glad that like they took it well, and there's no hard feelings amongst any of us. So yeah, but it was definitely a tough decision to make, I'd say.
Was there ever a point where you're like, maybe I'm the problem? Maybe I'm done. You know, is it was there ever did you ever get to that level of thinking?
Briefly, right after Milan, I did. Um, just because I like was really beating myself up for the the play I made on White Stairs. That that was a time. Other than that, though, I mean, I always believed that like I was a good player. I was a really good IGL. Like I always believed that about myself. It did get to the point though where like the results weren't happening. I was like, maybe I'm just delusional. Like I didn't think I was bad, but I was like, maybe because I couldn't see it. Like I couldn't convince myself that I was bad. All I could say was like, oh, maybe I'm just delusional and thinking that I'm good. um, but I think that's clearly not the case. So yeah.
All right. Well, enough about the down times. You mentioned it already that after looking at the different options that you had there on EG after losing the Raleigh Major, you ended up on Space Station, and the rest is history. But why did you decide to go with Space Station? What attracted you to that org, that roster?
So kind of like I told you, like how I felt like all those losses were like lessons to me. Um, I mean, there's obviously two big teams that would have taught me both of those lessons or all those lessons, and it was like Empire and G2. Um, and I had always respected them and looked up to those teams and kind of tried to like I guess mold play styles and like ideas from like things I had seen from them as well. Um, and one of the big things I noticed is that on EG, while we were while BC was on the team, we were a pretty structured team. But overall, I would say we weren't like the most structured team. I think some people had the impression that we were, but we weren't. Um, And I think like a team like Empire and a team like SSG before I was on the team were some of those cases of like extremely structured teams where like they run their default strat and they run it very well, and there's not a lot of holes. And if you play into their default strat, like you'll probably lose. Um, and then there was teams like G2 and kind of like how we were on EG, where it was more focused on like the IGLing and like the flexibility, where like you'd just be constantly adapting and trying to mix things up to catch the other team off guard. Um, and I guess I was looking to try to get like a combination of the two. And I thought by me joining SSG that it could kind of bring that to the table. That joining a very structured, consistent, disciplined style, and then bringing in my IGLing for when teams try to catch you off guard and kind of throw off your plans so that you could still land on your feet and figure things out.
Space Station, at the time whenever they picked you up, I mean, they were already experiencing success. Like, they've always been a really solid and consistent squad within the scene, in my opinion. So, is it weird coming into that, like, and saying, well, and did they pursue you saying, hey, we want you and we want your IGL abilities, or did you come in and be like, hey, you know, I just want to be on the team, but I'm happy to IGL? Like, how does that conversation break down? Because I feel like, you know, coming into a squad that's struggling is one thing. Clearly, they're looking for help. But when you're coming onto a squad that's already performing pretty well, it probably feels a little bit differently.
So I approached them, but it was like an immediate like agreement. And I think it was just a matter of like the people on the team like respected me a lot, like especially Lycan, and Lycan had the same kind of vision for the team and the game that I have, where like he has that structured style of Siege, but he knew that they were missing an IGL like me. And I think a big credit to like the other guys as well in like just being able to admit that they needed an IGL like me. Like no one had no one had a big head and was like, well, no, I could IGL and it would be fine. No one was like that. Everyone was like, no, I think we need someone like that. Let's bring in Troy. And like it wasn't even a discussion whether or not I would IGL. It was just like that was just how it would be. I didn't ask for it. It was just kind of agreed upon without saying even, I guess.
So you're on the space station now, and let's fast forward to the Oga pit, which at that time, whenever you guys travel to Croatia to compete in the, I guess it would be considered like the finals after the online qualifier for the Oga pit, you guys are trying to qualify for the Invitational. At that point, you were not qualified, correct?
Correct.
And that was
That's
the
what
big
we were
draw there, is that, you know, whoever wins that gets an automatic qualification into the Invitational. So you go to Croatia as the team, and you end up finishing second to Team Liquid, correct?
Correct.
Was that a big deal for the team? Because to me, from a spectator's view, since that point, I feel like you guys have been a different team. Like from when you showed up in Croatia as a team to now, you have played at a consistently high level, like extremely high level, every single match that you've played. Is there something about that trip that sticks out to you that brought you all together?
So actually the moment that kind of turning point for us was before OG pit, but like that was the first time anyone could see it. So right after we finished like my first split on the team, the end of season 10, as soon as we finished that, right away we agreed like we needed to change something. And we all agreed that the change that needed to happen is I needed to go into hard breach, and then we moved Fultz to entry. And that was like, and then Bosco onto flex. And like those were the swaps that we did. Everyone agreed on it. Like we knew that is what we needed to do. And literally like instantly, as soon as we changed that, it was night and day. The consistency we had like was way better. And that's when it kind of switched into like the us performing at that level you're talking about. That's when that happened, I think. like obviously we still had like our moments in scrims or like just from time to time where like we had issues that we needed to figure out, but it was not the same inconsistencies weren't there for sure.
Fultz, you mentioned switching on to an entry. He's known as one of the best mechanical players in the world. Definitely definitely a gunner. One of those like really super talented young players. Was he not on that role to kind of protect him a little bit because he is young? I think that everybody always saw the potential there, but was there a sense of trying to kind of protect him and not put him on an island as an entry sometimes ends up being? Is that why he wasn't there before then?
I think it was just kind of initially like inexperience and what he was comfortable with. So previously, like he had been playing in Challenger League, but he had been playing with a bunch of people, like a bunch of young gunners. Like he was playing with like Merc and Factor and like all these other like young gunners, and he was he was like the IGL and like kind of the brain of that team, I would say. Um, and because of that, like he was on a more like supportive or like flex role. So that is what like that's what he always played. That's what he was comfortable with. So when he joined the team, like that's just kind of what he went to. Um, but I think then once I joined the team, like it obviously made more sense to have him on it. And like we don't need like we have plenty of voices on our team, and especially with me on hard breach, like being able to focus like almost entirely on just IGLing and all that. Like he doesn't need to do it as much. Like he can just play his game, and I think it was definitely the move. I think he was a little hesitant when we first switched him onto it. Even when we first switched him onto Maestro, when we did both Maestro and Zofia, both times immediate like the same day after we switched him onto it, he went to the coaches or like messaged like someone else like after we finished streaming. He's like, hey, do you think I could go back to smoke, or like, hey, do you think I could go back to flex on attack? Because he just like he wasn't comfortable, and I don't think like he had built up the comfort and like the confidence to play the role. And just after a little bit, like he's just gotten the hang of it. So yeah.
He's definitely performed really well. So I'd say he's definitely comfortable now. Well, next up for you guys after the Oga Pit was the U.S. Nationals in Vegas. And obviously you guys won that. And to me, from what I remember, you guys really weren't even challenged there. I mean, did you drop a map to anybody?
We didn't lose a single map, no.
Yeah. So, yeah, you go there. Obviously, you're performing at a really high level. You win that the U.S. National Championship. Even though it wasn't a major or a pro league final, did it mean a lot for you personally to get over that hump, not be the runner up, but to be a champion again?
Um, it was definitely nice, but I will say, like, even when people were saying that, like after we won, I still wasn't feeling it because to me, like, it didn't matter until like I did an international competition. Like, obviously, like it was nice to win USN, and the competition was good, but it was also like a little iffy just because like teams had just recently made changes. TSM was playing with a sub, like things like that. Definitely factored into it, but like just playing more and building up our team's confidence, and like especially just getting like more LAN experience for like a player like Fultz, and like I mean just for all the guys in general, just more and more LAN experience. I think like how much your team grows in a LAN, especially like with how we play the game, like we're always constantly evolving as we play through a LAN event, which I think is I've always thought is like unique amongst the best teams. Like I've always noticed it with how my team was when I was on EG. I've noticed it with Liquid when they've had good tournament runs. I've noticed it with G2, not so much with Empire, but they had like a very different style of the game. But I've noticed it with like all those teams is that like one of the reasons they frequently make deep runs in tournaments is because they're constantly evolving throughout the event. And yeah, just another event under our belt. Like it just we learned so much more from that than like a week of scrims.
I want to mention something you said there right there that I think is really important to kind of try to establish like the mindset for champions and for especially younger people to understand. Like I think it's really interesting there that as you talk about the U.S. Nationals, like, yes, you are complimentary of your team's performance, but you're very quick to say, well, it didn't matter as much because TSM was playing with a sub. You're looking at things that you're not going to sit there and pat yourself on the back for nearly as long as you're looking at things that can motivate you to keep getting better. I think that's what I take from hearing you talk like that. And I don't think that everybody's built that way.
Definitely not. I mean, I see it a lot of players, even that are on the pro level. I feel like they kind of lie to themselves and like just to make themselves feel better. But like, I mean, I've always said it to my teams, and everyone on SSG is the same way. Where it's like, just they're like, don't kid yourself. Like, you need to be honest with yourself and realize like the situation your team is in. Like if you lose, you need to be real about why you lost. Like you didn't just get unlucky. Like you made X and Y mistakes, and like how are we going to fix that? And all those things. So I think it's very important to do.
It would have been really easy for you just to be like, oh, I finally did it. I'm not runner up. I won a championship. And it would have been really easy for you to just bask in that glory, I guess you could say. But I think it's really interesting that you decided to look at the reasons why it's not, as big of a deal and why you shouldn't, read too much into it. It's really insightful, man. I guess next up is the Invitational, 2020 Invitational. You're heading into that on a pretty high place after, again, performing well at Oga Pit, winning U.S. Nationals. So how are you feeling as a team going into the Invitational?
I mean, I think we're feeling really good again. Just before the event, we had like a little kind of bump where it was like we were in a temporary team house, and like the situation wasn't ideal, and like we just had this bump where like I think attitudes started to get like hit a little bit just because of like the mundane kind of routine we got into, because we're kind of isolated there a bit. We didn't have a car, like not much nearby, so like it was just a lot of like wake up, practice, like, or wake up, like game, sleep, and repeat, right?
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that, and I definitely think it affected some of us, like a lot of us. And we basically like had this moment where like we just like, and I think he did an interview about it, and he said like we had a kind of a come to Jesus moment where like we sat down, we had a team talk, we talked for a couple hours and just kind of got it all out, and just everyone talking and just kind of hit that reset button by, again, like just being honest with ourselves and like recognizing the situation we were in and just kind of getting over it, dealing with it. And then ever since then, like, again, just a lot of improvement. I mean, we didn't feel like insanely good coming to the event. It wasn't like we were like stomping everyone in scrims. I mean, obviously we were doing well, we were confident. But it wasn't like we were coming into the event and we're like, oh yeah, we got this. Like, it was still to the same level where it was like we knew like every team there was a threat. Like this was the most competitive event we've ever seen, and we just needed to take things a match at a time, make sure we were prepared for everyone. Make sure we kind of talked about all the bans and maps that we want to go through and how we want to play against certain teams. Yeah.
When you saw that G2 and Empire both got knocked out, what was your feeling?
I mean, I was surprised. I wasn't that surprised by G2. I was actually like, from how I had seen G2 playing, I was more surprised like that they did as well as they did in groups. And one of the things that a lot of people have said, like I've heard talks about it, is it looked like in groups they just played for fun and they didn't care because they were like, we shouldn't even be here. Who cares? Mm-hmm. And they played really well because they were just having fun. And then once they got through groups, they're like, oh, we could actually win this. Like we're in the playoffs. And then they started to take it more seriously, and you could tell like then attitudes started to flare a bit, and like you could tell that it definitely changed how they played. Um, so then after that, it was like wasn't as worried, I guess. Like when they got knocked out, like we didn't think they were like the biggest threat at the event. Obviously, we thought they were a threat, but we didn't think like they were the biggest threat at the event for sure. And then with Empire coming into the event, like we thought they were one of the best teams there. But then as we were watching through groups, like obviously credit to the teams that beat them, but you could tell that they were not playing like themselves. Um, like they were not the same Empire they once were. Um, like they were running their default strats and they were losing to default strats. It wasn't even like they were getting heavy counter stratted, and that's like unheard of for Empire. Um, so I wasn't like I was surprised that they did it or that they lost, but like I think literally after seeing the first game against DZ, I remember seeing the guys was like they don't look or sorry, the first game against Fnatic, it was the first map against Fnatic, and I was like they don't look as good as they once did. And then we saw the game against DZ, and then when they were going into the third game against Fnatic, we were like, if Fnatic like doesn't play bank, basically, we're like they could probably win this, and they did. So I think it was like just Empire had just kind of shifted, and I also think that it was their first event where they were like supreme favorites. Like
Sure.
it was the most pressure they had ever felt, and like I had talked to them after the event and they told me that they were like they had never felt pressure like that, because like they were on the brink of losing in groups, and I had never felt pressure like that either until rally when I was about to lose in groups for the first time ever. And that's what they felt against Fnatic. It was like, we can't lose, like we're Empire, we're supposed to win this whole event and we're about to lose to Fnatic in groups and get eliminated. So and like that kind of pressure, like that is more daunting than playing in the finals, and like when you maybe not supposed to win, like when you're just in the finals and like anyone could win. Like things change a lot when you're feeling that kind of pressure, and I think that kind of shook them up a little bit. I mean, I think it's important that they kind of got that out of the way though, because like I feel like every team kind of needs to go through that, and I think it'll make them a lot better.
Interesting. One of the things that jumped out to me from your run at the Invitational was you were in the same group as TSM. You beat them in groups, and then you had to face them. I guess it would have been in the semifinals of the winners bracket, and you beat them a second time. A lot of people say that it's really difficult to beat a good team twice. Were you worried going into that matchup the second time?
Um, I mean, it's never you never want to play a team twice. I wouldn't say we were worried. Um, I think I'd say one of the main reasons we weren't as worried as we would be against like maybe some other teams playing them against them twice is that TSM is a team that they usually just they run their stuff. Like they don't adapt a ton. They don't mix up play styles for certain teams. They just show up and play their game. Um, so it kind of also they have a weaker, not a weaker map pool, but a smaller map pool. Um, like their maps are very good, the maps that they do play, but overall it's smaller, which kind of allows us for more flexibility. So it wasn't like as big of a worry for us because of that, because of the combination of both of those. But yeah, obviously we wouldn't ever want to play a team twice, especially if you beat them the first time.
When in the group matchup against TSM is when you had the iconic why am I so much better than you? Is there a rivalry with you and Geo there being old teammates, or is it just would that have been the same with anybody?
Um, I don't know if I'd say it would be the same with anybody because there's definitely like there's some teams that I just don't say anything to just because like I feel like they don't know me as well or like I don't know them as well. But I wouldn't say it's like a rivalry with me and Geo because like I think I if I killed anyone on TSM I would have done that. Um, I think I think I do it a lot more against NA teams, and I think it's just because I feel like the NA players like know who I am a lot more, They know
And they're
like
not going to take it
I'm
the wrong way. Is that what you're
yeah, like
saying?
they know I'm not like that at a game. I mean, I did it one time against the stream, but I think that was more because I was like getting destroyed that whole game, and then like I started to do good, so then I said something. Um, but I think it's more, yeah, like I don't like to do it unless like I feel comfortable that they're not going to take it the wrong way. Um, usually. Um, so yeah, like that's why it usually only like you'll notice it happens a lot more against NA teams for sure.
So moving on to the championship of the Invitational now, you guys make it through the winners bracket. So you're in the championship without being beaten, and Ninjas in Pajamas makes it through the losers bracket. You start out with a one map advantage and a best of five, but you immediately go down and lose, and then you're down 0-4 on Clubhouse. So things are looking actually like awful for you guys. What's the team mood at that moment? Like what was going on with you guys?
I mean, obviously, like the energy was quieter, but that was also because like there was nothing to get hyped about, right? Like I said earlier, like it was kind of like a neutral energy. Like no one was negative, but it was always just we just had to keep going, like next round, next map, whatever, right? But like there wasn't anything to like get excited about yet. Just because like yeah, we were just like we were losing rounds, and honestly, like I had said this and the other guys on the team agreed, like we had played that whole event and like we had felt good. Like every match we played, every day we played, we had felt good. But any pro siege team can tell you this: when your team is having a bad day, like you can feel it. Like you know when your team is having a bad day. Like no matter what you do, no matter like what answers you try to pull out, like you just the other team is beating you. And that's how it felt against NIP. Obviously, a lot of the time that also is a combination of the other team playing really well. But like it just felt like a bad day. Just like no matter what we were talking about answers and like we were trying different styles and things to try to fix how we were playing and like try to pull some rounds together, but like we just it was not working. And I think we always in the back of our minds, like as long as we knew Clubhouse was the third map. So after we lost the first two maps and like while we were losing the first two maps, like still the whole time we're like, whatever, we can reset on Clubhouse. Because like if we won Clubhouse, then it'd be 2-2. We go to the last map bank. And like that would be fine. Like as long as we could reset on Clubhouse, it'd be all good. But then when we went down 4 on Clubhouse, that's when it really started to be like, there's no way we're having a bad day right now, is there? Like that's when it kind of went into my head. But it just like all it took was one round. We got our 2 clean attack rounds. And then we're like, okay, like now we're kind of playing our game now. It's all good. Let's just like run our stuff. We won our roam. I think we lost like another round after, but anyways, we ended up winning off of Nade's 1v1 clutch. It was like a 3v5 that round too. Me, Nade, and Rampy 3v5.
It's a huge moment, yeah.
And like that, something like that is just like all it took because that just brought some energy into the team onto a map where we're already comfortable. And we had started to get comfortable, but like it just took that. And then like from there, it was just back to SSG Siege. Like it literally, it felt like it transformed from a bad day to a normal day.
Just with that one round, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. Rampy had a pretty interesting clutch there too, where he impacted the floor above main stage and then shot the person planting. That was a big moment there too. It was a really interesting map because I remember as bad as it seemed in the crowd, like as bad as it seemed it was going for you guys, I thought to myself, you're down 0-4. If you win 2 rounds and you do a 2-4 split on Clubhouse, that's not out of the
No,
ordinary.
that's exactly what we thought. Because like
Okay.
obviously club's our favorite map. Like everyone knows this. And like that's always like what we'll tell ourselves is like we're a team we're really good at attacking on clubs. So like usually that is something that's one of our strong suits is that we can usually get like 3-3 or even 4-2 halves in our favor on attack. But like the rule is, yeah, like if you go 2-4 on attack, you'll probably be okay. Like as long as you play your defenses right, you should be okay. So when we were down 0-4, it was a little scary, but we're like, if we get the last two, we'll be all right. And we got the last two, and then I think just that was reassuring, and kind of made us more comfortable.
So obviously, I mean, we know you guys end up coming back on Clubhouse, and then you win the next map as well, which gives you the championship. I want to kind of just give a quick shout out to Ninjas in Pajamas for that losers bracket run, and just kind of ask you: is there something that made them really difficult to play against? What were they doing that was just so good for this for the invitational?
It's just I felt like the way it depended on the map. Bank and like in club, it didn't feel the same, but I think it was just like that's just kind of the way the maps played out. I guess like the flow of defenders is a bit different on those maps, but like just the way they like would isolate and just work picks in a setup. Like on border, it was just we could not stay alive. And I guess that's a big reason why they're so good at border. Especially is like they know how to like isolate and work a pick in the setup and just basically make sure that you can't trade. It was really impressive. They would just over and over again, we would just be stuck in a position, and they would just kind of isolate us and take us out one by one.
So a lot's been talked about with the format of this tournament, with there being a loser bracket. It was something new. Looking back on it, what did you think about the format with the losers bracket and the fact that in the championship, the winners bracket, you guys got to start with a one map advantage? Any criticism there or just overall thoughts?
It's hard to say, because obviously losers bracket is nice just because if a team does have a bad day, like if they're still a really good team, like they can bring it back. Like I like that. I also think that if you have a losers bracket, you do need to have like that significant advantage, like a one map advantage, because like if, for example, if we were to lose our first series of the tournament, on the grand finals, just because like in our case we just had a bad day, just like NIP did have earlier, like they had a bad day against TSM and they got smoked by like it wasn't even that close against TSM in their first series. And again, like it just seemed like TSM had a good day and they had a really bad day, but like they were allowed to bring it back because of the losers bracket. And if we were to lose because of that, I feel like it really would have sucked. So I feel like obviously I'm biased though.
All's well that ends well, right?
Yeah, obviously I'm biased, but I mean I've been on the other end of that one map advantage, and it's just like it is what it is. Like you made a mistake earlier in the tournament that got you into that situation, right? Like you lost a series earlier in the tournament that got you into the situation where you're down a map now. Like it's just that's I feel like that's how it should be. Yeah, I don't know. As far as if whether or not I'd rather have it at all, like the double elimination bracket, it's hard to say. I guess a single elimination bracket makes for a better grand finals, but a double elimination bracket I feel like makes for a better tournament.
That makes sense because let me ask you this: as you're playing after groups, when you're playing through the bracket, knowing except for the grand final, of course, but knowing that if you lose, it's not the end of the world. Do you think you play at a higher level without that pressure on you?
I think so. Yeah,
I
think
think
so.
I think that's probably true for most teams, wouldn't you say? That
Yes.
I kind of felt it. Just watching, I felt like we were watching a higher level of siege in those matchups because the teams were playing looser, and that's what I appreciated the most out of the format.
Yeah, like I would say arguably the best series of the event was, I mean, again, I'm biased, but I think like our TSM, our one against TSM in the winners bracket finals, like might have been one of the best ones of the event. And I think it was partially because of that like we're willing to like take risks on maps and play things differently just because you had room to work with.
Yeah,
Um
both teams did. Yeah,
yeah.
that's a good point. Okay, so obviously, we're caught up now with the championship, and huge congratulations to you and the team for performing so well. This was an event where NA broke out of its norm of other. I mean, let's be honest. Other than EG, NA hasn't really performed well at LAN. You have Dark Zero went to the finals in Japan, but outside of EG and then that performance from Dark Zero, NA has not performed well at LANs for a while. So what's going on with NA now that allowed them to perform at so much of a higher level at this invitational?
I mean, I think there's one, like, a rise of new talent is a big thing. I think TSM is a big example of that. Right, I mean, the core three of their team is like players that just came into the not came into the scene, but like came into the pro league side of the scene just this year. Um, like Achieved, Bolo, and Merc, two of them couldn't even play pro league, and one of them wasn't in pro league prior, like at the last invitational a year ago. Or actually, no, Achieved might have been. He might have been EXG. I think might have been just made it at the time. I don't remember.
Yeah, it was close. It was close to that time.
Yeah. But anyways, either way, like a rise of players like that, like Hyper as well, like just somewhat recently, kind of not that recently, like joining the pro scene, but like improving, getting noticed, and then joining like a top team in the pro scene, and then like Fultz on our team even. So I think like rise of players like that. I also just think like the mixture of players as well, like DZ kind of breaking away from their like old core. Now Mint and Hot are like the only two left from that old core. And then like obviously I think EG breaking away from our core kind of. But I mean obviously like we competed before, but like I think me joining SSG also helped in that sense. So just like it just strengthened a lot of teams, like all these mix-ups and like rising new talent. And I mean, like as soon as you get like one other stronger team, like it just raises competition for everyone, because all of a sudden, like it's just another really good practice partner to learn from. And the more good teams there are, the better like everyone's gonna be. That's just how it is. The more teams to learn from, like the better you're gonna be.
I remember you putting out a tweet shortly after you joined SSG, and I'm paraphrasing here. I don't have it up in front of me, so correct me if I'm off on this. But it was something along the lines of you just saying that it's really nice to be on a team that enjoys playing ranked together, or something like that. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I do remember tweeting that. I will say though, I don't play ranked nearly as much anymore. But they love it. The other four guys grind ranked. I still can't do it anymore. But there was like a brief time. I think it was because of the lack of cheaters at the time. But now that the cheaters are kind of back, like I just stopped again. But when there's no cheaters, I do enjoy playing like in a 5-stack with them and whatnot.
Is there something to be said for a team that enjoys, playing together even when it's not in necessarily pro league competition?
I mean, I definitely think like it doesn't hurt. I don't think it's necessary though. Like, I think G2 is an example of that. Like, they had quite a few players like in their prime days that didn't play ranked. Like Fabian and Eunice, they didn't play it like all that much, or if they did, like they would play like in separate groups. Like I think like during their like their prime, I think like Goga and sometimes Kanto would play with like Pengu, and that was like about it. So I don't necessarily like think it holds too much weight. I don't think it hurts, but like I don't think it's a necessity.
Well, I don't want to keep you much longer here, but I think that on behalf of myself and obviously everybody within the scene, congratulations. I think everybody's really happy for you. I think that I think that you've been a really great ambassador for the game and for the competitive, aspect of it. And so to see you, go through this period of, getting there and then not getting it and, hitting these bumps along the road, but then to see you, land on Space Station, bring a good element to that team, and then, your team perform at such a high level, it was really satisfying to watch as a fan. So congratulations, man. I think everybody's really happy for you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
What's next for you? I know Pro League's going to be starting up here. You guys are, you guys are going to be in a team house, right? So, what's next for you guys?
Yeah, settling into the team house and yeah, just preparing for Pro League. We're just one step at a time. So focusing on our next match, the rest of the season, and then on from there. But just one step at a time. Just again, we're a team that I think we just focus on the moment and what's right in front of us and how to improve for that. So just just continuing to improve.
Well, for anybody who's watching and wants to, interact or follow Canadian on his social media channels, they'll be linked down below. I'll definitely have your Twitch as well as your Twitter down there, so you can follow Canadian on both of those outlets. See whenever he's streaming. See whenever hit him up on Twitter. Anything else that you want me to have linked down there?
I guess my Instagram as well.
Yeah,
but that's about it.
I'll put your Instagram down there as well. Anything that you want to say as we wrap up here?
Just thanks for having me, and then thanks again to the fans for all the support, and yeah, we really appreciate all the support. Thank you to my teammates as well for trusting me and picking me up on the team, and thank you to Space Station for the support they give us. Yeah, thank you guys.
You mentioned the fans, and I would kick myself if I didn't ask you this. There was a moment in the stands there where you guys are down 0-4. I believe it was at that moment, and everybody turns on their phones, and it was one of the coolest moments I've ever been a part of in any sports crowd ever. Did you guys see that? Were you guys following what was going on in that moment?
So I don't know if the other guys did or not, because I didn't really ask them. I'd imagine they did, because it was hard not to notice, right? Like literally the environment around you changed. I noticed. Now I will say though, as cool as it would be, and as much as I'd like it to be the case, and like how the timing of it worked, that like it was like basically, yeah, it was like when we were down 0-4. It was when we were down like 0-3 or 0-4. Like it was something crazy like that, the timing of it. As cool as that would be if that was like we saw that and we're like, that's kind of what like sparked the comeback and whatnot. When I saw the lights turn on, my first thought was like, are they like preparing to celebrate for NIP or something? That's what I thought in my head. I didn't know until after the match. People told me that it was like to like simulate like a sky of stars, like we're in the space station. I didn't know that until after that it was for us. So it was definitely surreal though. Like I remember just looking up and getting goosebumps. Like even with me thinking that it was for NIP possibly. And I still got goosebumps. So yeah, that was crazy. And just throughout the whole game, like people were roaring, like chanting SSG, like no matter what the score was. It was crazy. There was like nothing stopped them, which was that was pretty special to be a part of.
It was really cool. And I mean, the crowd, just having an NA team in the final was amazing. Just comparing the crowd last year with G2 versus Empire to this year, it was night and day. And honestly, I hadn't felt that intensity since the 2018 Invitational. Whenever, it was a little bit closer quarters in that venue. It was like that bowl shape where we're all like looking down on you guys as the players. Mm-hmm. And it was, well, like I said, I've been to many football games, college football games, some really passionate fan bases I've been a part of. That, in my opinion, is one of the coolest moments in any sporting event I've ever taken part of. And it was organic as well. I don't remember the announcers saying to do it or anything. Everybody just kind of did it. And hopefully that'll be a tradition for Space Station moving forward, that, maybe we were like there and, started something that'll continue for years to come.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. That was, yeah, it was something special for sure.
All right, Canadian. Well, thank you so much for coming back on. I really appreciate it. You've always been great to me on this channel. Like I said, you've been on here several times before, and I cannot stress enough how much I appreciate that. Make sure you pass on to the rest of your teammates, coaches. Congratulations, and I'm really happy for you guys. Thanks for bringing it home for NA. And for everybody watching, we will see you guys on the next one.
Later, guys.